I'll keep an eye out for those, Teresa. In the meantime, since Eden's not here, do you want to play Eden and welcome everyone?
Sure. If you could also put the agenda up, and if you don't get the slides, let me know. I sent them, but I'm on my hotspot, so we might have to.
Okay, I'm waiting for them. I'll let you know if I get them.
Okay. All right. Let me know when we're ready to go, and if you want to put the agenda up, I'll do the welcomes.
Yes, I got the slides, and I will throw up the agenda right now.
Perfect.
Give me 1 second.
Seeing that you work with Jennifer down there at the bottom left.
Yeah, at the Michelle.
All right, agenda is up, Teresa.
All right, welcome everybody. Today we're really excited. We have a little bit of a special guest here. Well, a lot of a special guest actually, but we'll go through that in a second. I'm not Eden, but I'm playing Eden today. She's out sick and we hope she gets better soon. So we'll do quick introductions and then move through the agenda. You can see here we'll do a network focus, talk a little bit about some of the discussion results from our surveys and topics of interest for to focus on for the next year, as well as some presenter ideas. And then we'll move into an opportunity to hear from our good friend Lisa Coleman on she's legislative director for California Commission on Aging, so updates on legislation and activities related to that would be of interest to Silence Equals Violence. We'll move down to supported decision-making with myself and my good friend here, Carl Pullen, and I'll let Carl introduce himself in a little bit as we work our way through introductions and updates. And then at 2:50, we'll do our closing thoughts and see if we can identify any pressing issues. So with that, let's go ahead and do member introductions and member updates. I'll start and we'll kind of maybe go in this room and then we'll kick it off to everybody else on the Zoom. I'm Teresa Anderson. I'm the executive director with the California Policy Center for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. I am here with my good friend Carl and Wendy and Austin, and I'll kick it over to Carl so he can introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm deaf. And I'm from Sacramento. I'm here at STEP, Strategies to Empower People, and I'm really good friends here with Teresa. I've been teaching her some sign language, so and I really love it. So I'm really motivated to be a part of this and to collaborate with everybody here. Yeah, it's big, and I look forward to getting involved with the support.
And I'm happy because before, probably a lot of the signing knew might have been naughty, but Carl's teaching me the good stuff. So, Carl, do you want to introduce, have Wendy and Austin introduce themselves?
So this is Wendy. She's a facilitator here at Strategies to Empower People, and she works with me. She's my facilitator. She helps to support me in different things. She is deaf as well, same as me. And she just supports me with every different decisions. Like, for example, like supporting to make sure I'm good, that I'm okay, just every different facets. Just all the different supports, teaching me to be independent, and teaching me the bus routes, and all these different things here. And that's what she does. Her name sign. This is Wendy, but her name sign is a W up here to the, and I'm Carl with a C up here. Thank you, Carl.
And Austin, would you like to?
And I am Austin. I'm the ASL interpreter here at Strategies to Empower People.
And you can't really see Austin because he's facing Carl, so he can interpret. And with that, I will hand it over to Tyler.
Hi all, Tyler Hershey with the Arc of California. Excited to be here. You probably get spammed by all my emails. So thanks for being here and glad to, Carl, thanks for being here along with our other presenters. It'll probably be a quicker meeting depending on how fast things go. But excited to have you guys here. Thanks for taking time out of your day. Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Starford from the Board Resource Center and glad to be here and looking forward to the meeting. Let's see, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Coleman. I am the Legislative Director for the California Commission on Aging. And this is such a really cool group because it's a nice combination of advocates and also representatives from state departments. And I always find I learn a lot in this group. So happy to be here. I'm gonna hand it over to James.
Hi everyone, Jim Tujari. I'm the Program Administrator of Adult Protective Services within CDSS, and yeah, always happy to be here and excited for the agenda. And apologies, I came in late, so I'm not sure who hasn't gone.
We could kick it over to Jen.
Hello there, this is Jennifer Minahan. I'm with the California Policy Center for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Hope everybody's well today.
Who do you want to bounce it to, Jen?
Hmm?
Oh, I was gonna say, who do you want to bounce it to?
Oh, I'll bounce it to Dave.
I was, I was going to follow my colleague Jen and introduce myself. I'm Dave Manson. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement for the CPC-IDD. And I don't know who to bounce it to.
How about Greg Desir? Greg, you're on mute, my friend.
Here we go. Greg Desir, I'm the civil rights advocate with the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration.
Esther?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Esther Sybil with the Department of Developmental Services and with the Office of Risk Management. Happy to be here, and I will hand it off to Priscilla.
Hi team, I'm Priscilla Clausen. I use she, her pronouns. I am a project coordinator at Valor, and we are California's Anti-Sexual Violence Coalition. Rosa?
Hi, I'm Rosa Valencia. I'm covering for our Deputy Director, Felisa Gray. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm gonna pass it on to Susan.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm with CDSS. I've been with the department for about 6 years. I'm a new analyst to the Adult Protective Services Unit. I'm happy to be here and learn and look forward to learning everything in this meeting. Thank you.
Tyler, I can't see everyone on the list. Are we missing anyone? Did we hit everybody?
Has anyone off camera or anyone else want to introduce themselves on camera or introduce themselves? No. Give it a sec. All right. Yeah. Continue, Teresa. I think we're
Okay,
good.
well, great. We talked last time a little bit about a survey. Tyler, did we get survey results back, or should we move into some of the discussion on what are some of our interest areas for next year?
Yeah, let's do that. If you guys haven't filled out the survey, I'll send it again too following this, but we're kind of beefing up our YouTube account and trying to just get more involvement from the community and kind of have all of our resources in one area for all of you guys and beyond. So I'll send that out as well as our YouTube with some links on it, some past presentations after this as well. So if you guys could fill that out, it just kind of helps the planning team have a little more idea of what you want to see in these meetings, who you want to present, learn more about, and so forth. So if you guys could do that after, that would be amazing. And I'll send a follow-up email as well.
Thanks, Tyler. And one of the things we wanted to bring up is some of the stuff that we're doing today with the supported decision-making conversation around supported decision-making and financial decisions. And then we also, we'll talk a little bit about during, Carl and Mike's presentation, about some of the other work we're doing in supported decision-making as well in the legal, some of the legal capacity, legal services and implications in the legal space, for supported decision-making. So that's one of the things we would, that we'll put on, potential topics for next year. It's kind of it'll follow, the presentation we're doing today on the financial decision-making. So we can think about that. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you.
Bye.
Wendy's going to support somebody else right now, and we have Carl's another support for Carl. And you want to introduce her, Carl?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry to interrupt the meetings here. This is Marissa. She's she's works with Wendy as well. She's a facilitator, and they kind of go back and forth working with me. So with Wendy and Marissa, having them both. So she is deaf as well, fully deaf. So yeah, that's Marissa. Yeah, thank you. Yes, to reintroduce myself, I am Marissa. I've been working, as on the facilitator for quite a while now.
Meet you.
And nice to meet you. Yes, nice to meet you as well. All right, sorry to interrupt. That ball's back in your court.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, so we won't put anyone on the spot right now, but feel free also to put in the chat if you think of some interest areas. Like Tyler said, if you could fill out the survey, that would be great. Maybe you have some ideas for presenters. You can also add that in the chat, or email Tyler, and we can toss those ideas around as well. Any follow up on that agenda item, Tyler, anybody?
No, but we'd love to hear you guys' feedback. I mean, all of us here come together as volunteers. So if you guys have any input at all throughout the course of the months, please share it with Teresa, Mark, myself, Keisha, just so we can kind of take what you guys want to learn and plan it towards the next meeting, especially when we're planning for speakers for 2025. So yeah.
And with that, we'll turn it over to our good friend Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, so much for being here.
Appreciate the opportunity
you're-
to talk.
There
Can
we
you guys
go.
hear me?
Yeah, it's a little faint. Is it just us over here?
It was. I think it got better as you talked.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I am in an office, and so I don't, and they've all heard my spiel before, so I get a little embarrassed about, repeating myself so much in my office. But this is my favorite time of year. I love the legislative season. I love that, this is going to date myself, but when I was a kid, there was a cartoon called Schoolhouse Rock. And every Saturday, Schoolhouse Rock would come on, and there was a song about I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill, and it's a long, long way. And I love this idea that as a citizen, I can help change my government. I can help change how laws are made and how budgets are spent. And I believe in that. And I really do believe that the people have power to do that. I'm not going to be completely Pollyanna. At this point in my life, 50% of the country didn't vote the way I voted. And so 50% of the people don't think the way I think. But that doesn't mean that we can't participate on a federal level, and certainly have an opportunity on a state level to engage in improving the lives of older adults and adults with disabilities and families and caregivers. And if we're breathing, we're aging. So I think that all people are my people. If you're breathing, you're aging. That said, this is also the busiest time of year, and I'm not really prepared to talk to you today. Bills are still coming out, and things have changed a lot. The landscape at the Capitol has changed. First was the governor has, the leadership have reduced the number of bills that a given legislator can put forward. So historically, an assembly member could author up to 50 bills over a 2-year period. And now that's been reduced to 35. And my initial reaction to that was that's a really good thing, because having fewer bills means that legislators are going to take more time and they're going to put forward things that they believe and have had more time to research. Unfortunately, the legislative staff was reduced also. And so now legislators have to choose, they can have up to 7 employees between both their district office and their capital office. And that's a big drop. I mean, we're talking about 80 to 100 fewer people working on legislation. And so then it means that it is harder to get face time with the staff, and the staff don't have the time to really become subject matter experts. So what that means to me and to you is that we have a greater obligation to get involved and make sure that the information that leg staff get and that they put in front of the legislators is right. I often think about how sad stories don't always make good laws, but they're sad stories, and they certainly can get legislators' attention. So that's why subject matter experts like us on this call have an obligation to talk to legislators. But as I said, there's fewer of them, so it's hard. And so things have been delayed and they haven't been getting out their bills. And so right now it is a mad rush, because everything that's going to happen this year has to get a number by Friday. I think that's tomorrow. I'm losing days. So broadly speaking, I can't come to you and say that there's a whole bunch of bills that I think are really relevant to this group, but there are some. Certainly there are a couple of bills that I wish Carol Sewell was on this call, the California Elder Justice Coalition. They are helping to work with the author on AB, where is it, 871, AB 83. These are all, they've just been introduced, but they have to do with banking and financial abuse of older adults and adults with disabilities, just financial abuse for everybody. Those to me are interesting. There's several bills that have to do with allowing access in licensed care facilities. I think that's a big deal in this group. We know that pandemics, while I don't want to ever live through COVID again, the reality is there's going to be more diseases that pop up. And yet, because a person lives in a licensed care facility shouldn't mean that they're imprisoned and that they can't meet their family. And so there's some good bills that are talking about that. So we'll have more in the next 2 months. Fortunately, we have time. These bills aren't going to be voted on next week or even next month for the most part. The commission is working on some bills. I don't know, while it's important to me, I don't know that making permanent the updated Open Meeting Act, Bagley-Keene, is as much a silence equals violence bill, except that this bill allows people to participate remotely. Prior to COVID, if you had a statewide commission or board, all of those meetings had to be held in person. So if you couldn't travel, if you cared for someone and couldn't arrange for a caregiver, if for whatever reason you couldn't be in the room, then your voice really didn't count. And so one of the advantages that COVID allowed was the governor said, we can use technology. We can do what we're doing today. We can meet virtually and have a greater participation by including all people, not just those that are physically able to come to gather. So our bill would seek to make permanent that flexibility. So it's important to me. Is it a silence equals violence? Well, maybe if you think that by excluding voices that you are not giving people an opportunity to engage, and maybe that's a form of oppression. So I don't know. Bigger budget issues. And so I did want to address one of the things. I think I have the ability to share now. Thank you. Many of us have worked over the years on the master plan for aging. That was a report that actually really began before the governor was even elected. Some aging advocates and disability advocates met with the then running for governor, Gavin Newsom, and said, what are you going to do to address this changing demographic? And he agreed that he would do a report. And it became the Master Plan for Aging, and it is the roadmap for what California needs to get in place. There are several of us that are on this call that are feeling like, well, they're dragging their feet and they're not moving fast enough because we're now 5 years away. But my Pollyanna side says that we have made some progress. And so I would encourage you to go and to download what's the report, because the report does say what some of the progresses have been made, and we have made progresses. And then the initiatives for 2025, 26, they've reduced it down to 81 of their top priority issues. So I guess I should have started with a little bit about me with the Commission on Aging and what we do. So the Commission on Aging is in statute as the people's advocate to communicate with the governor and the legislature, both state and federal, and to work with departments on anything impacting older adults. And last year, our mission grew with an assembly bill, and it added older adults and adults with disabilities and caregivers. So my playground got really big. And again, you're all my people. Again, because we're all breathing, we're aging. So when the commission was looking at what legislative efforts we were going to do, besides the Bagley-Keene bill, because that was really important to me, to allow us to continue to have virtual meetings, we took our cue, I guess you would say, from the Department of Aging and their 81 initiatives. So let's see if I can do this correctly. Sharing it again. All right, so it's kind of sloppy because this is a part of that apologizing, and I'm not exactly 100% ready because unfortunately our initiatives are between 2 pages. But you'll notice that Initiative 5 is housing and Initiative 6 is also housing. And the commission looked to the Department of Aging and said, okay, well, what are your 81 initiatives? And we identified that housing was something that's of significant issue. And we were disappointed to see that in the governor's January proposed budget, he didn't include additional money to keep 3 programs going. The 3 programs specifically were the Community Care Expansion Program, the Home Safe Program, and the Housing and Disability Advocacy Program. Now, in full transparency, the Housing and Disability Advocacy Program, HDAP, does have a $25 million ongoing, but it's used to getting $150 million. So if you go from your household budget being $150 million down to $25 million, the amount you can actually do is dramatically cut back. And so we believe, the commission believes that so much time and effort has been put into getting this program up and running. And it's now there's 54 programs out of the 58 counties, and there's 17 tribes that all have this. So that's where we're at. And then also community care expansion. And that's an ability to add more housing stock. So those are budget requests we're doing. I know if Eden was on, she would probably talk about a budget request for the Ombudsman program. They're working on something. So there is activity and there's opportunity for us to get involved. And I don't want to spend too much more time because I don't have fact sheets for you. I don't have sample letters for you. It's all just very early in the process. So we'll have plenty of time to talk more about it. But if I could take just a little bit more time, Tyler, and just talk about what I think is the most pressing issue that this group I don't think we've ever really worked on is the federal effort. Because right now, right this very minute, the legislature is gathering. They are attempting to do a fast track bill, attempting to, what is it here? They're attempting to cut a minimum of $880 million, of $80 billion in federal spending. So when we look at our federal budget, Social Security, Medicare, Defense, and Medicaid. Well, I don't think this is going to be a government that's going to want to cut back, or this is not going to be an administration that's going to be all that excited about cutting defense. I mean, how are they going to get Greenland with a reduced? But I digress. So probably defense is not going to be cut. Social Security and Medicare are big voting blocks, so those programs don't typically get cut. But Medicaid is often the way we attempt to balance our budget. And few years back, not too many years back, California even would do that, cutting our HSS, cutting our regional centers funds, cutting our day programs. Fortunately, in California, we've gotten much better about that. And I should give the governor props that while he didn't invest in some of the housing programs that we're going to be asking him to invest in, he didn't cut from a lot of programs that he has historically cut from in the past. So I do need to give credit to both the advocates, because we kept the pressure on to keep it in the governor's budget, and credit to the governor that he recognizes that it's important to protect our most vulnerable. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel like our federal government is following that same example. So over the next week, they will be fast tracking a budget bill. And it will impact our folks. It will impact IHSS. It will impact SNAP programs and food programs. And it is important that we say something and raise our hands. So what the commission is doing, the commission we'll be submitting a formal letter today, and we're sending it to all of our congressional delegates, as that's one aspect. But all of you can also make phone calls and contact your local congressional member and let them know that these are programs that are important to you, and that you're not just going to go quietly and think that the way we balance a budget is to take it out on those that are the most vulnerable. And so there's that. The other thing is the Older Americans Act has to be reauthorized every 5 years. And unfortunately for us, this is the year it has to be reauthorized again. So come March 14th, this administration has to sign that again, the Older Americans Act. If they don't, then even more of the programs that we count on, because it's the Older Americans Act that pays for the funding that comes to California, that goes to the Department of Aging, that then gets contracted out to the regional centers and to the area agencies on aging, and in full transparency, funds the Commission on Aging. So I guess I have a bit of an incentive to encourage you to pick up the phone and to call about making sure that we do reauthorize the Older Americans Act. I guess that's probably a lot. So
yeah, there's a lot going on. You're right. And thank you so much, Lisa. We really appreciate that. And I know with the language deadline being Friday, we'll see I knew that the number was being cut back. I didn't quite know to what. So thank you for sharing that. That's really important, as well as the reduction in staff at the legislature. So I know we'll see more. I know we'll see, in probably our next meeting, there'll be some updates about bills that are moving through. And I know Tyler, the ARC, and there's a large network who's doing work in the federal advocacy space too, on the Medicaid. So those are all really big issues. So thank you, Lisa.
It's always my pleasure. It's always fun. And please feel free to share when you have a bill that your organization, I know Greg sends them my way, and I can't always get the commissioners to see my logic, but I do try, and happy to promote and support other advocates' bills along the way.
Yeah, thank you. Quick question regarding those bills that you were mentioning earlier. What bills were those that you mentioned that were upcoming?
Okay, so I would say one of the ones to start for us would be AB 83, Assembly Member Keiko. I don't think I'm saying that. It's almost an intent bill. It's directing the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation to require companies to submit an elder abuse prevention plan to the Department of Financial Protections and Innovation. So it's a first step. There's no teeth to it. There's no, this financial plan must do A, B, and C, but it is saying that companies, and these would be financial institutions, will have to have some abuse prevention plan in place. So there's that. We have AB 251. This is a COLRA bill. This is actually a repeat, three-peat. This bill was in its first go round, AB 2773, and then the second time around it was AB 2800. And it's a technical bill in that it's changing the standard of evidence from clear and convincing down to a preponderance, but only in those cases where you can prove that the facility was attempting to destroy or to corrupt evidence. So a good example of that was when I was a long-term care ombudsman and I had residents that were saying that they weren't getting their medications on time. And so I went, this is dating me, so this is way back before we even had pagers. So I'm in the facility and I asked to see the med chart, and sure enough, there's no lists of medications being given to the residents. And the rule is if it's not written down, it didn't happen. And the staff was telling me, oh no, I gave it to him. I gave it to him. I gave it to him. I was like, yes, but the chart says you didn't. And then I don't have a cell phone, so I can't take a picture of it, right? So then the next time I come back with a camera, well, the chart magically had everybody's information included in it. And so that would be a situation where I could claim that the lower bar of evidence would apply because they went after the fact to change the evidence. It's a hard bill to get passed. Facilities are not excited about lowering the bar because we do live in a fairly litigious society, and one good lawsuit could put you out of business. But I think it's a worthy cause. So there's that one. Then we have some home and community-based waiver bills that probably this group might want to be looking into because it does allow for greater independence. AB 315, that's a BONTA bill. What other bills am I looking at? Mandated reporter bills. So AB 871, and Carol Sewell will be able to talk about that one a lot more than I can. There's a housing protection bill, SB 434. And I'm sure there will be more that'll come, Tyler.
Yeah, tomorrow. I know, we're waiting.
Maybe there's some people on the call that have some that I haven't tracked yet.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, don't let us forget at the end, Tyler, to do those updates that, if anybody has information they want to share about different bills.
Totally. Yeah.
I do have to apologize though. I am kicking myself that I didn't plan my day better because I would love to learn more about the supportive, but I have that federal letter that I told you we were going to be sending out today, and I haven't finished it. So I'm going to have to jump off this call, and my apologies, but maybe I can do a follow-up to look at the notes.
Yeah,
if this is
don't
helpful.
worry. Don't worry, Lisa. Carl and I will be around doing this for a while.
Actually, I had a question for you, Lisa. So, I was really powerful what you were talking about. Just one thing I had noticed that you talked about the current president, the current things about them taking money away from us in our community. It's hard, that the people voted for that. I did try to vote myself and, for the other president, but they already won the election by that time. So it was really close, and I'm just, scared about what's happening and how to, fix what's going on with our community and for the intellectually and developmentally disabled. So I'm just trying to, yeah, with Trump trying to do all these things and not needing all these things are taking things away from us, and like, how are we supposed to, protect ourselves and people who are blind or deaf or all these different things in the community? How are they going to be able to do, a lot of these things? The administration doesn't care, so it's hard for us to communicate with them. So I'm concerned about the future.
I don't wish to dismiss that, because those are all true feelings and fears. And I think part of it is we have to change the narrative. Just a story. My son and daughter-in-law wanted to save for a house, but rents are really expensive. So it was really hard for them to find a place to live and to be able to start saving for a house. And at the same time, my daughter-in-law's grandfather, Grandpa Ron, was 85, and he was starting to have some issues. And so his family's like, you're falling, and we need to do something different. And so it was like, well, you could hire a caregiver, you could move into an assisted living facility, or your granddaughter and her new husband could move in with you. And he was like, hell no, it was no, and hell no, because he didn't want to be seen as needy. But and so there was a non-starter. But then when I went and I talked with him, and I said, it's not about you needing care. It's more about you have something to offer. Because Grandpa Ron knew that owning a home was financial security, and that was a big part of his family's success. And so he isn't in a position to buy his granddaughter a house, but he was in a position to give her a place to live so she could save. So I think part of it is, and they did move in, and it was a wonderful thing, but part of it is we have to change the narrative. You as a person, that you don't hear the same way I hear, but it doesn't mean you don't understand, and it doesn't mean that you can't contribute. So we just have to change the narrative. It's not that you need any more than I need. You just give in a different way than I give. And I think that that's a powerful message. And I think that's something that our community hasn't done as good a job of articulating. If a person is hurt and they don't have Medicaid or Medi-Cal to get the surgery, well, they're going to remain hurt, and then they're going to remain unable to have a job and to earn taxes. But if we give them this ability to get the surgery, to get well, then they can help. If we did sliding scales instead of saying, well, you need to remain impoverished to get benefits. So I do think that there's an appetite for that. So I would say just keep showing up. They can't deny that you exist, and they can't deny that you have value. That's
All
my
right. Yes,
preaching to
thank
the
you.
choir.
Thank you, Lisa, very much. Tyler, can you show where are we on the agenda?
We're right where we should be with you guys.
Oh, okay. Well, and Lisa, don't worry. Carla and I, like I said, we're going to be around quite a bit doing presentations. So I'm sure you'll, if not be able to see the full presentation today, there's going to be plenty of opportunity.
Okay, you will share those invitations so that we can put those out there, and maybe we can even
Absolutely.
help promote that through the commission's social media. We're trying to promote educational opportunities also.
Great. Oh, we'll for sure take you up on that.
All right, then. My best to you all.
Thank you, Lisa, very much.
Bye-bye.
Tyler, can you share the slides?
Yes, give me 1 second.
You
Do
got
you guys
it.
want to introduce yourselves while I pull those up?
Sure, Carl.
Well, I
would
guess you
like-
kind of already did, yeah.
Sure, yes. My name is Carl. Sorry, I'm from STEP, Strategies to Empower People. And yes, I love being here, and I'm really good friends with Teresa here. And you know, I love teaching sign language, and she's a good student. She's learning. And my facilitator here is Marissa. You want to introduce yourself? She's deaf. Oh, what's going on? Okay, yeah, she's deaf. So, okay, I'm just the supervisor over here on the enhanced side. My name is Marissa.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Carl and I and how we're working together. But Carl is, as you have learned, a self-advocate, but he's also a trainer, a teacher. He's really helping us understand a big piece of supported decision-making and how that impacts him in financial decision-making, but not just him. It's really meant to be broader, and that's why we're doing these trainings. So if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. So a little bit about the Policy Center is that we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization established to identify best practices that inform, support, and improve upon statewide policies that impact the lives of people with IDD in California. And this project is really important to us, and we are really grateful for the opportunity because we have a grant from the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, the California State Council on Developmental Disabilities, through their supported decision-making technical assistance program to really develop, and when I say develop, I mean that. We get out there and we do the work on talking to people and how this works, you know, for individuals, but also for you know, the financial institutions, trustees, fiduciaries, bankers. So really to develop and provide training to professionals in the financial sector that's really, really specific to supported decision-making. As I mentioned earlier, we also have one that's focused on the legal sector, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So next slide, please, Tyler. So one of the things Carl and I have talked a lot about is decision-making. What does that look like? And so what's the least restrictive to the most restrictive type of decision-making? And so for Carl, Carl is not conserved. Carl makes his own decisions. He knows, you know, a lot of the important financial decisions he makes are really important for his life and how he lives his life. So we talked a lot about when we first started developing this training, what are we looking at? What is supported decision-making? So there's different ways people make decisions, and there's supported decision-making, shared decision-making, and substitute decision-making. Substitute decision-making is the most restrictive, and then less restrictive than that is shared. And then the least restrictive is supported decision-making. So in a supported decision-making relationship, the supporter provides assistance to the person with disabilities. So that, and this, it's written from the perspective of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but it applies to the senior aging community as well. So it's really about how they can make their, what support they need to make those decisions. So I give an example here, and Carl can kind of weigh in on this too, but let's just say it's Carl, and I know we have it says individual up there, but Carl wants to purchase a computer because he's a fantastic gamer. And but he's not really sure what what computer to purchase, because he knows there's certain things he wants in the computer, not just a basic computer, because he likes the graphics. He likes it to be real clear. So he's like, I want to go find out information about these computers. Maybe controllers too. What's the best controller? Maybe I need a super fancy gamer chair, you know, so just everything's tricked out. So, but he doesn't know all this, right? So Carl, what would you do in that case? If all those things were important to you, what would you want to do?
Yeah, I know I'd need to save money, but you know, I would after, you know, work, I would save some of those checks. I would also I could try to figure out maybe, you know, with my my staff, we can figure out if there's like a Black Friday sale or something. If there's different ways that would be better than buying just the most expensive thing, we can try and something that's not used, but you know, at least on the cheaper side.
And something that meets your needs, right? So you'd work maybe with your person who's supporting you. Maybe it's Marissa, maybe you guys go to Best Buy, ask a bunch of questions, right? From the people at Best Buy. What computer works for this? What controller works
yes.
for that?
Yes.
And then do you think you might like talk it over with Marissa and say, hey, what are all my options? Do you, and you know, maybe she could help you. There's two computers, one's $200 more than the other one. Decide whether, do I really need this one or which one? Yeah, balance it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, like for example, like $800 or $1,000, I can see exactly what features are better for each one if I really needed it, or they could be the same, but just one's cheaper. So I'd probably go for the cheaper one.
And that's your decision, right? That's the important part of it, is supported decision making. You got the information, you understood the information, and then you made the decision.
That's right.
And shared decision making is different because it tends to be like a joint decision. Two or more people making the decision together. We see this a lot more in healthcare. This is something that happens when, you know, maybe you go to the doctor and there's something, you know, you're not really sure about what, maybe it's medication, right? Maybe you have a couple different options for medication. The doctor might give you advice on what they think is best, give you all your options, but then together you decide, hey, this one might be better for me.
Yes.
So that's shared decision making. And then substitute decision making is what we call the most restrictive. And that's where we see when somebody is authorized to make decisions on your behalf, not with you or not providing you the information, but on your behalf. So we see that a lot in conservatorship. We see that with powers of attorney. You know, something in that space where the decision is made for you. So that's substitute decision making. And, you know, great example of that is, hey, I want to live in my own apartment. Like you live in your own place, right, Carl?
Yes, I live in a house. Yes. Alone.
Yep. And that's where you like to live. That's where you choose to live.
Yes.
If somebody else was making the decision, they might say, no, I think Carl should live over here in this, maybe not a house, maybe a condominium, maybe it's closer to transportation. They're making that decision for you.
Yeah. For me, place me in not having that decision. I like where I'm living now because it's close to where I work. So it's easier for me than if I was going to move somewhere else just because transportation and then an apartment, that wouldn't be what I wanted. I wanted to be close to where I work. That's my decision.
Yeah, because you're not having somebody make decisions for you. You use supported decision making to make your life decisions.
That's right.
Next slide, please, Tyler. So there's this bill, and I should have started off by saying the reason for this training is because a bill, Assembly Bill 1663, passed in 2022, officially recognizing supported decision-making in the law, in the statutory language. So these are some of the things that we had to kind of walk through in this is, what are the legal requirements? What's documentation required for the different types of decision-making? So supported decision-making, there's no legal requirements for documentation. But it is, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, if you do have a written supported decision-making agreement, there are things that need to be in there, but we'll go through that in great detail. So there's no legal requirement for supported decision-making, but it is best practices to have a written supported decision-making agreement, which we'll talk about reasons for that. Shared decision-making, like we talked about, is the most common. Documentation is like a jointly signed informed consent between the individual and usually it's a healthcare provider, that clearly documents the discussion that they had and they agreed upon course of action. So yes, we talked about this medication. I understand side effects. It's informed. My decision is informed, and then both parties sign it. Substitute decision-making does require legal documentation. And that could be, like we talked about, proof of conservatorship. It could be a power of attorney. It could be an advanced healthcare directive. So those are different legal requirements. Next slide, please, Tyler. Okay, this is important. So this is kind of where Carl and I really spent some time talking about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and decision-making capacity, because a lot of times people think because a person has an intellectual or developmental disability that they might not have the capacity to make decisions. But we know that's not true. We know that people make decisions all the time. And in this case, what the law says, the supported decision-making law, it says that adults with IDD, including older adults with IDD, are presumed competent. So that means that you just presume that they can make those decisions, that they have the capacity to make decisions regarding their day-to-day health, safety, welfare, social relationships, financial decisions. And you do that unless, and here's the important part, unless it's been determined otherwise through a legal proceeding, like conservatorship or something like that. So we really, the big change came with the law now says, hey, when you're deciding or you're assessing if this person has capacity, you need to do it with the supports that they need as well, including supported decision making. So where, like, Carl might ask Marissa for some information on, making a decision or what something means, or to explain a definition or something, to go into greater detail. That is, that's important because Carl can still make the decision, right? He still knows what he wants, but he might need a little more information in learning all the, the information about that situation or definition or whatever the case may be. So he can make that decision with support. That's the important part of how the law changed, is that no longer do you assess capacity just based on, your interaction with that person, but you include the supports that they need. Next slide, please. Carl, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, no, great.
Okay, you jump in anytime, okay?
Will do, okay.
So what is supported decision-making? And I did see something in the chat. I can't get to it right away, but we will look at the chat and answer questions after. Supported decision-making, this is really important to really think about what this definition means. This is what's written into law in the Welfare and Institutions Code, but it's an individualized process. I cannot stress individualized enough, because Carl might need support in one area, not another area. Somebody else might need support entirely different. So it's really unique to the individual. And it's that process of supporting and accommodating the adult with a disability to really help them understand their choices and make life decisions without, and here it says, impeding the self-determination of the adult, but that really means like without taking control of it, without taking away their autonomy, taking away control for them to make their own decisions. So that's a really important part of understanding supported decision making. Jump in anytime.
Yeah, I just agree. Yes, that's definitely, yeah, I agree with your statement.
Okay, so life decisions. These are the decisions that affect, you know, all the things that we have up there, but and more, right? So we have medical decisions, psychological, financial, education, where you live, who you want to live with, what services you want to access. And there's things that, you know, who you want to date, what kind of relationship you want. Do you have a religion that you believe in? Do you go to church? Where do you want to work? Those are all big life decisions that, you know, are day-to-day decisions too. They impact your life. And so some of these decisions you might be, you know, asking for support, like what other people think, you know, just kind of checking it out, right? Like if you're not sure about something, you go, we do it all the time. If I, you know, have some questions, I'm going to go to somebody who does that or knows that information and get their thoughts on it, get their opinion on it. But ultimately it's my decision, what we decide to do. Like where you live.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You know, you talked about relationships, and, you know, it's like right now, currently, you know, I don't have a girlfriend, but, you know, it is, sometimes it is a little bit harder to find in the world, but, you know, it is my decision right now to keep on looking.
See, that's an important decision too. And so think about that, Carl, like if you wanted to pursue finding a girlfriend, you're going to think like, how am I going to do this? Where am I going to go? Who am I going to talk to? Are you going to ask, who, you know, who would you ask for, hey, what do you think I should, you know, is there somewhere I should go to meet people? What do you think of online dating? Like you're probably not going to ask, you know, your grocery store clerk, right? You're going to ask somebody that you know who maybe has that experience.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, that's the people in your life that you trust to get information from.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and I still, you know, trying my best, but, you know, you're right. I've been able to ask.
Yep, it's part of it. The other thing supported decision making does is it provides a way, and we say flexibility, but it's a lot of different ways for adults with IDD to maintain their autonomy, like their independence. They, you know, like you get to live on your own, and I didn't mean it like get to, like it, but you live on your own, and you make those decisions. You make decisions about your life, what you want to eat for dinner, when you want to go to the gym, what job you do. And sometimes you might need, well, this is a great example, support in communicating and implementing your decisions, right? So if you said, hey, I want to go to the gym at 2 a.m. because I woke up and I'm wide awake and it's just what I want to do. That's your choice, right? And so you go ask, you know, somebody to go with you. You go, you know, what works for you. You get people engaged in your life. It's what you want, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is a good idea. Like if it's 2 a.m, or, you know, even if I want to go like in the afternoon, it'd just be the best, whatever I decide.
Right, because it's your choice. And so we have to think about like how would you, there's no if there's no flexibility, right? And somebody says, nope, you can only go on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. That doesn't work. Maybe you work at 2 p.m.
That's right.
That's gonna be your choices and your decision.
Yeah, it's my right, it's my choice, and they can't control everything that I'm doing.
Right.
No.
I wouldn't even want to be the person to try. Can you do the next slide, please, Tyler? So supportive decision-making is not new. It's been around for many years. What is new is different states, including California. I think we have 20 states right now that have implemented legislation to formally recognize supported decision-making. But for many years, people have recognized the importance of supported decision-making and the principles of it. And so how do they apply to financial decision-making? So we talk about the principles, and the three on this slide are autonomy, where the individual retains the ability to make their own financial decisions and have control over their own money, their own finances, even when using a supporter. So that could be things like, and Carl can speak to this real easily, applying for a credit card, opening a CalAble account, deciding how much money to put in your CalAble account, choosing apartments with higher or lower rent payments. Like those are financial decisions where you retain the autonomy or the independence to make that decision.
Yeah, that's correct. And, depending on like the bills, and if, things are what I need to pay, I can pay those out and still have money left over to do what I want. It really just depends on, what the bills going up and down and what rent is.
And when we first started doing this work together, Carl, we talked about a credit card, right? Like understanding you might need support. Maybe Marissa would help you understand if you get this credit card and you have, like $2,000 open money on it, you can spend up to $2,000. You have to understand what payment you have to pay back every month. What about interest? What does it do for your credit? Like those kinds of financial things, financial decisions are stuff you guys discuss. And then when we first started talking about this, you ultimately make the decision. Do you want the credit card or do you not want the credit card?
Yeah, that's right. He said, but I am, I am lucky that I do have TMS or a payee that does help me with my finances, but that's something that I chose. So I know they do a lot of the stuff where I don't have to worry about it with like my bills and everything. And I'm like, do I have enough money here or where is that money going? They've been taking care of it for me, and that's something I have left, and that leftover money that I have that I'm able to pay it on whatever I want.
And so you work with them though to understand your money, and ultimately it's your decision.
Oh, yes, always, yes. Always being able to check my balance, making sure the bills are already paid, and and whatever I have left, then if there's a little bit of money left or if it's a small amount, or if it's a large amount, or if it is a large amount, they will send me, letting me know that I have too much money or not enough money, things I can keep informed about.
And some of the other principles are inclusion, so that you're actively involved in the decision-making. Maybe examples would be looking for different apartments or developing a monthly budget where, maybe you and Marissa talk about your monthly budget. What do I want this month? What do I want to save for? And then support. Another principle of supported decision-making is the support matches the appropriate level of assistance, like that's provided by the trusted person, by Marissa, by Wendy, by Austin, to ensure that you understand your financial options. So it just like we just talked about, pros and cons of a credit card. Maybe the credit card has cash back or travel points, or one credit card is a higher interest rate, but you get, an incentive or something like that. So that's helping you understand which one really works for you. And then maybe there's other things like attending financial literacy class so you understand personal finances. Those are the types of supported decision-making, the principles really are fostered in supported decision-making. Next slide, Tyler. And then flexibility, we also talked about it, changing. Maybe Carl, hits the lottery, wins $1 million. His, his,
I wish.
we might change what he's
If it was $1
looking
million,
for.
I'm gone. I'm going on vacation to everywhere. Spending all that money, going to Japan, China, the Philippines, Mexico. I'm going everywhere.
World travel.
Oh, yes, I will.
Yeah, but again, that'd be your choice, right? And the supported decision making offers the flexibility in that to tailor it to your choice and your needs and your wants. So the other principle in supported decision making, the fifth one, is really understanding what's the least restrictive level of assistance that you need to really help make informed decisions about your finances. And this can include anything from informal support, just like a verbal, agreement, or, hey, what do you think kind of thing, all the way to the formal legal tools that we talked about. So it could be supporting, you're balancing your budget every month. Maybe you sit down at the end of the month and say, did I make it? Did I pay my bills, and do I have extra money? Or it could be all the way up to something like, you talked about TMS. You're a representative payee that provides a clear understanding of the financial transactions that you do in a month. And that also that they honor your preferences in choices and spending. So really understanding what your needs are and meeting you at the level of support that you need. And that's a really important part of supported decision making. Next slide. The other way, I think, my friend. One more. There we go.
Sorry.
So that's okay. And I can't really see time, so keep me on time check if we're.
It's 2:10. You guys are doing good.
Okay, cool. So some of the other things that, it's really important that gets discussed is there's a lot of concern that supported decision-making agreements are like some type of legal agreement. So that's something that we're really going to spend some time going into detail, that what a supported decision-making agreement is after we talk about who can be a supporter and do they have legal authority. So a supporter can be a trusted adult, so like a friend, family member, professional, like Marissa is a facilitator for Carl, but also a trusted person in his life, just like Wendy and just like Austin. He trusts them, he has a relationship with them. And so they can be a supporter. The role of his choice, the important part here is that Carl chooses who supports him in what areas. So the role of supporter is to help the adult, help Carl understand information so he can make informed decisions. And unless the supporter has a valid legal authorization, those are the legal tools we talked about, like power of attorney, durable power of healthcare, conservatorship, that kind of stuff. That's not allowed. So unless the supporter has that valid legal authorization, and they're acting within the scope of that authority, they cannot either make decisions for, well, in this case, Carl, for anybody, for the adult with a disability, make it for them or on behalf of them. And they also cannot sign documents on behalf of the person with a disability. That's their job, right? If that's their decision, the individual would be signing his own documents. Carl would be signing for his own credit card or lease agreement or whatever. That is his decision, and he has the legal right to to sign those papers, whereas the supporter does not. All supporters must, and this is a big piece, comply with existing obligations and prohibitions under any other law. This doesn't change anything else that protects individuals with disabilities and seniors from fraud, abuse, neglect, coercion, or mistreatment. This doesn't change any of that. And then the law also says that a supporter shall not participate in any life decision in which they have a conflict of interest. And this could include, but it's not limited to, any decisions which the supporter has a financial or other tangible stake in the outcome. So like you wouldn't, if Carl won that $1 million and he got, you know, maybe he's got a bank account and he, you know, has a beneficiary signed to the bank account. That beneficiary would have, you know, an interest in Carl's financial status. So that person wouldn't be a supporter because they're considered what we call in the law interested. Any thoughts on that, Carl?
No, I agree, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Next slide, please, Tyler. Now this is who cannot be a supporter. It was really interesting when this law was being talked about before it passed about, you know, how do you balance that? How do you know somebody's gonna, you know, be a supporter and maybe not take advantage of the situation? And there's no guarantees in life, you know, really, but so this was what everyone agreed upon in terms of like kind of the guardrails around who cannot be a supporter. So if the adult with a disability previously made or makes an allegation against the supporter that's under the Elder Abuse and Dependent Adult Civil Protection Act, they can't be a supporter, which means like if the person has been accused of abuse before towards that person, whether it's before or currently, they can't be a supporter. If that adult with a disability has an order of protection, like a temporary restraining order or even a permanent restraining order or injunction against the person, that person can't be a supporter either. Then let's see, if the person is subject of a criminal or civil order prohibiting contact with that adult with a disability, and that's again subject to restraining order. If that exists in the relationship between that person and the adult with a disability, then that person cannot be a supporter. The other two areas that were agreed upon was that the supporter, if the supporter has been removed as the conservator of the adult with a disability because they were not acting in the conservatee's best interest, they also cannot be a supporter. And then if the supporter is found criminally, civilly, or administratively liable for abuse, neglect, mistreatment, coercion, or fraud, then they cannot be a supporter. So those are the criteria of who cannot be a supporter. Other than that, it's really based, it's really up to, in this case, it'd be Carl or any other individual who uses supported decision-making to choose a person they trust and to support them in different areas. In this case, it would be financial. Next slide. Okay, so here we go. What's a supported decision-making agreement? It's really a private agreement between two people, right? Between the individual with a disability who has the right, the legal right to make decisions for themselves, and a trusted supporter. And that agreement outlines what kind of assistance. Like maybe Carl wants Marissa's support in financial decision-making. Maybe he wants Austin's support in making healthcare decisions. Maybe he wants Wendy's support in developing social relationships. So it's really the agreement between Carl and the person he wants help from or assistance from in making those decisions. They could be informal, which is just, you know, a verbal agreement, or it can be formal. But like we talked about, for some of these bigger decisions, having a formal agreement really is best practices, and we'll talk a little bit about why. But if it is formalized, there are some criteria in the law that have to be met for it to be a supported decision-making agreement. It has to be in plain language and accessible to the person with a disability. And Tyler, do you want to, next slide, please? Thank you. And then these are the areas that are required. There's a lot of different templates out there right now. There's no one universally agreed upon template for supported decision making. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, has an agreement out there that's pretty widely distributed. And it crosses different states. It's because they do it in many different states. The agreement that they have has a financial monitor requirement on it, which California doesn't have, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they have a pretty good one that, you know, kind of gives a template. So supported decision-making agreement must include at least the following. These are the criteria that must be there. A list of areas with which the person wants support. So areas Carl wants support. Maybe he wants support in financial decision-making, healthcare, but maybe not employment, maybe not his job. Maybe he's fine in his social relationship. So he gets to choose the areas that he wants support in. And then a list of what the supporter agrees to provide the support, the areas of support. Because maybe Marissa's like, no, dude, I do not want to mess with your finances, so no. And so unless, you know, but maybe she's like, yeah, cool, I'll be your supporter here and, you know, help you learn information or gather information on your finances. So it has to be, you know, both parties agreeing. The supporters agreement that they're bound to all existing obligations under the law. They have to agree to that. And then information for the person with a disability about their rights under the Elder Abuse and Dependent Adult Civil Protection Act. So they got to be informed of their rights. Information and copies of other substitute or shared or supported decision-making documents. That's really important because a lot of times you might have both, right? You might have a supported decision-making agreement. But let's say Carl says, I really feel strong that if something happens to me and I'm not able to make the decision, I want this person to make these decisions for me. Basically, I trust their judgment. I trust they know what I'm going to want if I'm not able to communicate. That's power of attorney. So, and that could also be a healthcare directive. So there's different things that are really important to have if, you know, to have available if you know that those exist. And then it has to be signed by the individual with a disability, and it has to have 2 signatures, 2 disinterested witnesses that are at least 18 years old. And disinterested is like what we talked about. They can't have like, you know, be a beneficiary of Carl, you know, giving them money or something like that. So they've got to be disinterested. They can't have a you know, they call it a stake in the outcome, but or the document needs to be notarized. And then one really important thing on that slide that Tyler, can you go back for just a second? I should have bolded this actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably will. So right under that, it says the adult with a disability may use reasonable modifications such as assistive technology or physical assistance to sign the agreement. That's new, and that's really, really important because that's part of, you know, what has been a barrier in the past is if not recognizing that the person can make decisions if they can't sign it, you know, or don't maybe read at that level or something like that. It's all different levels, but you can use reasonable modifications to sign that, and physical assistance, like, you know, really
That's
hand
right,
over,
yeah.
So that's new and that's super important.
Yeah, that's important. Yes, that last statement is definitely, it's good.
I need to bold that, huh, Carl?
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
See, he's my test run on this, telling me what I did good and not so good.
Yeah, but they said like using pictures, or some people who might not be able to understand the words but be able to communicate exactly what's being said. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's something really important that we talked about, and we're actually working on is developing supported decision-making agreements, and this was 100% Carl's idea was, hey, I want to support a decision-making agreement that has a picture of the person who I want to be my supporter in what area. And then maybe pictures of different, you know.
Yeah, like having the pictures there, like what this sentence is talking about, is like more of a picture that would match kind of what it's saying, or I can get an idea like this is talking about housing or this is talking about finance. Like the picture kind of gives an kind of a short explanation of what's being said, so it makes it more clear and I can understand it.
Yes, and we are definitely working on that. Okay, next slide, please, Tyler. Okay, so this, when you're talking about the financial piece of it, right? Like, what is a fiduciary duty? So many people, like financial advisors, fiduciaries, public fiduciaries, trustees, they all have fiduciary duties, which creates a legal or ethical relationship that says they must act in the best interest of the person, and the beneficiary in this case would be Carl. So California law does not require supporters to be fiduciaries or hold fiduciary duties, but they are required to do all of these following things: support and implement the direction, will, and preference of the adult with a disability, respect the values, beliefs, and preferences of the adult with a disability, act honestly, diligently, and in good faith, and act within the scope of the identified by the adult with a disability. And then this is super important too, maintain confidentiality. Like that's a trusted relationship, and you have to really maintain the confidentiality of the person that you're supporting. The only way you can disclose any information is if Carl or the person would authorize that. Next slide, please. And how long does this supported decision-making agreement last? As long as you want it to. And the most important takeaway from this slide is that it should be reviewed by the individual and all the supporters every 2 years, and updated. If you do update it, it has the same requirements where you have to have 2 disinterested parties as witnesses to witness the agreement. And then this just talks about how it can be terminated. The person with a disability can terminate it. The supporters can terminate it. But it is, it's important to understand too, like how, if a supporter terminates the agreement, they have to communicate that they no longer want to be a supporter. And that's a really important distinction. And then the agreement can be terminated by the terms of the agreement. Let's say Carl says, I want your help for this one thing, to help me figure out which computer to buy. So as soon as Carl buys that computer, that agreement's done. And then of course, if somebody dies, that agreement's over. Next slide, please. This is another important part. Any party to the agreement can terminate it, but like I said, it's got a written or oral notice has to be given to all parties. But the adult with a disability may also terminate the agreement, and this is at any time, through any type of conduct showing that no longer do they want that agreement to exist. It could be canceling it, putting an X on it, tearing it up, anything that shows, hey, I don't want this anymore. I'm done with this. So that's also an important piece of how it gets terminated. Next slide, please. So this is kind of where we get into, you know, the stuff we're talking about, the financial abuse and exploitation and balancing in the financial industry or the financial sector. And we'll talk about a little bit about this. Every person, employee, administrator in the financial industry is a mandated reporter. So that's a really important thing to train the financial sector on this, because we really want people to be able to have the right to make financial decisions, but also there's the flip side of, hey, is something shady going on. So financial abuse and financial exploitation for the purposes of this presentation are really the same, which just means that it's, and I don't mean just like minimizing, it means that a person takes or assists in taking or retaining real or personal property of and we don't like this term, but it's what the law says, elder or dependent adult for wrongful use. And I know Greg's gonna get me on that one. Or for the intent to defraud or both. So and the same thing for undue influence, it's the same thing. That's a really important distinction because we want to make sure that no one has that type of, if they are doing that, it's wrong and they're prosecuted for that. So identifying, understanding what financial abuse and exploitation is really important as we talk about how do we recognize it? What are some of the signs? What are some of the concerns? But then how do you balance that with supported decision making? Next slide, please. So here's some of the things that we'll be really running through. Financial abuse it's long been a problem. Abuse of elders and people with disabilities has long been a problem, and it actually continues to be the fastest type of abuse, and it is significantly underreported. So we don't even know how many people are victims of financial abuse, and that's a really important thing to kind of elevate and highlight. One of the most frequently voiced concerns about supported decision making is it really opens the door, right? It becomes a tool for abuse, especially financial abuse, and because you're putting someone in a position of trusted advisor, and maybe they're not the best person to be there or whatever. There's concerns about that. Well, we did not a formal literature review, but over the last 10 years, we looked back at literature on financial abuse of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We didn't find evidence to support that there was an increase of financial abuse for individuals who use supported decision making. We looked at these 3 journals. But I mean, we know that it happens, but some there's some speculation that this might actually be a protective factor. And Tyler, if you could go to the next slide, we'll talk about why. I think go back one. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Back one. There we go. So one of the things, and it's not on that slide, but one of the things that proponents talk about supported decision making, kind of the more eyes on it, right? The less likely one person is going to be able to financially abuse or exploit someone. So when you're looking at supported decision making and thinking about like, okay, there's more people involved, there wasn't really evidence to suggest that supported decision making actually increased financial abuse. We don't know yet. There's a very small study that says it may actually lend some protective factors, but that's yet to be determined. It's still a very new law in that way, but there's still more work to be done there. So supported decision making, or okay, these are like, what is it? Supported decision making or financial abuse kind of scenarios. So the supporter's role is only to assist the person in gathering and understanding information. It is not in understanding their options. It's not to make decisions for them. That you really, cannot be stressed enough. Carl's decisions are Carl's decisions. So concerns of financial abuse and exploitation. This is where we're really kind of the rubber meets the road, if you will, in the banking industry and the finances, is how do you know what it is, right? So it arises in circumstances where a person that's identified as a supporter exerts or attempts to exert control over decisions made by the elder or person with a disability, or they try to control their decision. This could look a million different ways. It could be through manipulation or coercion, sometimes secrecy. Like there's different ways to do it, but it's ultimately taking away their ability to make their own choice. And that's exploitation or financial abuse. Next slide, please, Tyler. So this is our scenarios. And we can kind of walk through these, and Carl, weigh in anytime you like, but let's say Jay's a person with an intellectual disability. He chooses his cousin P to be his supporter in financial decision making. Now we'll go through each one of these, and I'm going to ask Carl what he thinks. Jay loves football and wants to have a Super Bowl party at his home. He wants to purchase a 92-inch TV that costs $4,000 to purchase and install. And Jay's been saving his money for several years to go on vacation to Hawaii because he's always wanted to go there. He has $5,000 in his savings account. Jay asked P, what's he think? Next slide, please, Tyler. Okay, so here's our scenarios. Get ready. It's our game show. Here we go. All right. He thinks it's a terrible idea for Jay to buy the TV and tells him he should not do it because it costs too much money. Is Jay making his own decision in that case, or is P making it for him?
He said no, he was deciding for him.
Right, so that's not supported decision making.
Yeah, he just decided everything. He doesn't have the choice, or if he not even explaining about the Hawaii or anything, it was just told him no.
Yeah, so he's making that decision. That's not really a good supporter. That's not somebody who's really acting as a supporter.
And that's not okay.
No, not okay. Pete also loves football and would love to watch the Super Bowl on a huge TV. So he tells Jay, just do it. Go for it. Go buy the TV, even though Jay's not quite sure. And when he asks Pete, are you sure? He says, all your friends will love it and love hanging out at your house. Like, you should just do it. Is that good? What do you think of that?
No, that's not good at all. No, that's not okay. If you're just telling them to do it for your own benefit, like, and then he buys it, and then he's not gonna have he's gonna be upset that he's not gonna be able to go to Hawaii, or he might even, throw behavior, or I don't know, he might. Maybe he gets really disappointed, and he's like, I want to go to Hawaii and not have to save all over again.
Yeah, and so we might even think that could be going right up against maybe financial abuse or exploitation, right? Because he's doing it for his own good. He wants it. He wants the TV. He wants to watch it. He doesn't really care what Jay's finances are at that point. So that's kind of manipulation, right? All your friends will like it. They'll love hanging out with you. It's really not acting as a supporter. And
I agree.
Yeah, we could argue financial abuse on that for sure. Last one. P suggests that he and Jay make a list of pros and cons related to the purchase to make sure that Jay understands all the implications before he makes his decision on whether or not to buy the TV.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And being able to see both options, which one's the pros and cons, what's good and what's bad, being able to look at both of those and make that decision.
Yeah, and ultimately it's P's decision, right? So he's saying, here's what you do, here's what you look at, here's the information, like they come together, pros, cons, discuss it, and ultimately Jay makes the decision. So that's what we would say is supported decision making. Next slide, please, Tyler. Okay, so we're 2 slides away from finishing, but this is super important because, like we talked about, anyone in the financial industry is a mandated reporter. And nearly 35% of the elder and dependent adult abuse is for financial abuse. Again, remember, this is super underreported. We don't actually know. It's much higher than that, but that's actually the reports. That's the percent of what's reported. In California, all officers and employees of financial institutions are mandated reporters, including notary public, and financial professionals. This is why this training is so important and why Carl and I worked really hard to kind of figure out how to communicate some of this is financial professionals are in a really unique spot to identify it. So maybe like Carl, do you go in person to the bank?
But no, I don't go into the bank. I have TMS.
So if you like TMS started seeing, hey, there's some big trend, somebody's taking out a couple $100, you know, out of Carl's account. That's unusual, right? TMS is a financial professional. They have to look at your money. If they start seeing it, they're in a good spot to say, hey, something's not right. So if unusual spending patterns, somebody's taking out large sums of money, they're going to call you and say, did you do this? Did you take out this money?
Oh yes, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll always check and they'll check in. It's like, hey, what is this money coming from, or why'd you take this money? They always contact.
Yeah, because that's kind of like a protective thing, right? Like if they're looking at your finances and see something unusual, they're in a good spot to alert you to it. And maybe like these are some examples where financial professionals are in a really good spot to, you know, say, hey, something's not right. Maybe they do go in person to the bank, and maybe they have a new person. And this is where it gets a little tricky. If there's a new person advising the individual, the bank teller might be saying, okay, is this like they're giving them information? Or are they saying, hey, take out $500 right now? Those are two totally different things. And a bank teller would be able to say, this feels like, you know, maybe the person is a little reluctant to do that. Or they might be able to say, oh yeah, this person is, you know, helping them understand if they take, you know, $200 out, they have $700 left. Do they have enough money? So it's a different type of interaction. And it's important for the people in the financial sector, the bank tellers, bank managers, fiduciaries, you know, to understand that. So other signs that, you know, something could be a little something to watch for is maybe they add someone new to their account. And those are things that in the mandated reporters training. So that's a great, if people on this call or you want to share this information, this website right here, mandatedreportertraining.com, is really good, and they have a really in-depth training on financial abuse and kind of patterns, what to look for, how to recognize it, and what you should do if you do see it. So that's a really good resource. Next slide, Tyler. Oh, rep payees. We talked about this a little bit already, so we don't really need to go over it too much. But, you know, one important piece about a rep payee and what Carl was saying is they at least, you know, they'll work with you, right? A rep payee should understand what your preferences are, what you like. They are responsible, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. The rep payee is responsible to make sure that your basic needs are paid for, right? Some of the things that they're required to make sure your needs are met is food, shelter, clothing, medical, personal items. But there's a lot of opportunity in that relationship for financial decision making. So once those basic needs are met, then what, right? How do you make decisions about the way you want to spend the rest of your money? The important thing too with rep payee is the federal level, the Social Security Administration does not recognize supported decision-making or supported decision-making agreements at all. But that doesn't mean that the rep payee in California, where the law is, can't use the principles and some of the decision-making supported decision-making principles for interacting with the folks that they support as their rep payee. So that's an important distinction. Next slide, please. Oh, and that we talked this a little bit, doesn't really apply. Financial monitors don't necessarily apply because it's not in the law in California, but it can be best practices where if you have supporters in your financial decision making, Some states require a financial monitor, meaning that it's another person who kind of oversees that relationship, that financial relationship. And it is best practice and can reduce the risk of financial abuse or exploitation. But, you know, that's again a personal choice, right? If you, the law in California right now is the floor, you can always add more to it. Next slide. Professional liability for financial professionals. This has been a really interesting conversation across the board in different states. But basically what it comes down to is, you know, there's a lot of people who are concerned about what if I, as a professional, like if I'm the trustee and I say, yeah, that's good, go ahead, here's your $10,000 for your TV and big chair. And I relied on Carl's agreement with, you know, his supporter. Oh, we like this is good, blah, blah, blah. And then later it comes back and says, how could you do that? What was it not in Carl's best interest? So those, like, understanding the professional responsibilities, you've got to, the professional standards in that profession are what the professionals have to rely on. Did they do their, did they fail to act? If they did, and they weren't like what they call prudent and diligent in their profession, then sure, they could be in trouble. But in most states, and California didn't really specify this in the law, and some of the other states, they've put a clause in there that says, hey, if you're acting in good faith and you met the standards of your profession, you're probably not going to be in trouble. So, like I said, California didn't do that, but I'm sure there's, you know, as we talk about it, there's room for, you know, at some point, probably clean up legislation on some of these things. Next slide. There it is. Good job. My co-presenter. And we are happy to take questions.
There was one question in the chat. So a couple people had to leave to some meetings, but one of them was, do you have a template we can use for the supported decision-making agreement?
Yes, and we are working on another one, like we talked about, with pictures and different, you know, different personalized agreements. But there are templates, and the ACLU has several templates. There's and each one of these resources will lead you to some of those templates.
Perfect. That was the one question from someone who had to pop out.
All right.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you. Are you guys tired of talking?
Do you want to stop sharing slides? We can't really, we only can see the slides.
One sec, sorry.
There we go. Yeah, I know that was a lot of ground to cover.
Does anyone have any questions, or are you all like me soaking in all this information? Thank you guys again. That was, I'm still soaking it all in.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover. It's a new law, but that's our job. Carl and I, that's our job, is to share the information and get it out there so people understand it.
Working hard, Carl.
Yes, also, I want to say thank you guys for your patience and your time for listening, you know, letting us, you know, just thank you guys. And I do feel, you know, inspired for all the work that you guys do. And, you know, just, we're very respectful.
And thank you. Thank you all for being amazing presenters. That was great, Carl and Teresa. Appreciate it. Anyone else have any questions for the one and only Teresa and Carl? Before we that was the last thing on our agenda. We finished 10 minutes early. Look at you, you talked fast enough.
Poor Austin. And if you want to close us out, Tyler, I know we had said if anybody has any bills or anything that they wanted to bring up.
Yes, good call on remembering. I am looking at those bills that she shared with us earlier. I know us on the ARC side, we're working on bills. We've been working on them, and we'll be sharing them after next week. So probably at our next meeting after the deadline tomorrow. But if anyone else has any to keep an eye on in the meantime, please share those, email me, and I can share those with the group. Teresa, I know you guys will probably be looking at some. So yeah, if you guys have any, drop them in the chat, email me after this, and I can definitely promote those as well and kind of share information about them.
Great. All right, well, any closing thoughts? Any closing remarks? No?
No.
He's like,
Thank
all
you.
right, this is good. We're done. Thanks, Teresa.
Yes.
Thank you, boss.
I think we could probably just say thank you and close it
Yeah.
out. There's no other.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to email us. I'll send out the survey again after, and then we'll plan for our next meeting. If you guys have any speakers who come to mind, who were amazing, just like the speakers today, please send them our way so we can staff up for the next meeting. And we will see you all hopefully next time. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, guys.